Welcome to the It's Better Together podcast, where intelligent conversations turn dreams into action, with hosts Marcy Stout and Allison Nissen. Each episode highlights inspirational women and practical business advice from the Revel Coach Tuesday at 2 live programs. From building a website to securing more clients, we cover topics that are interesting to you. On this episode of It's Better Together, we highlight our Tuesday at 2 conversation with Terra Bohlmann, who shares with us her love of masterminds, her business map method, and a strategy for serving over sales. Let's meet Terra.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's always great to see you, and we appreciate your time. We'd love to just jump right in. We know that you have been a part of masterminds and you run a mastermind, and we are so curious. We need to know a little bit more about masterminds and what that's all about.
And that's such a great question. Thank you for asking, because when I've been an entrepreneur, well, in this business for about 10 years now, like a decade. I like blink and it's here. I can't even believe it. And I was like always wondering, what are these masterminds? Like they're these like mysterious things that people do. And you're like, well, what is that? Do I need to be part of it? So yeah, masterminds are where it's a coordinated effort with having like-minded people together in a room. And there's the philosophy. So it comes from a book called by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. You've probably heard of it. Greatest book. It took me about 8 times to read it. And it's not an easy read, but I promise you, when you get to a certain section in the book, you're like, this is so worth it. I get it now. But you have to give yourself the time to get to this certain section of the book because it's written from a long time ago and whatnot. So, and really the power of being in a mastermind is when you're with like-minded people and you're exchanging ideas, and everyone's it's more of an experience than anything else, but you're like, say you bring to the table, so everyone gets I call them love seats instead of a hot seat, because who wants to be in a hot seat? So like a love seat, so you're sitting in the love seat and you get the time. So it's like, hey Tara, we have an hour dedicated to working on what you need to push through right now. What is the biggest issue you're having in your business? It could be your life, whatever. And, and I would bring my hot topic to the table. Like, I'm really struggling with this and it's keeping me up at night. How have you handled it and whatever? So like the whole point is you want to get your problem out there as quickly as possible. And then you just like be quiet and you let the power of the group serve you. And I always tell at my masterminds, I tell everyone, have your neighbor take notes, because while you're in this love seat, you will totally like not even remember, your mind will be just swirling. So, instantly. And what's really cool, and I see this every time I have one of my masterminds, it's like you bring your thing. So if I have one of the participants is in the love seat and she brings up, how do I package my expertise and sell it over and over again, whatever. So say that's hers, then all of a sudden she's quiet and people just one by one, they maybe ask a clarifying question and then they just serve with everything they know and what they've experienced and learned and whatever. The next person does the same. So she's getting poured into like crazy. Sometimes it's hard. Like I've teared up before because as women, we don't know how to just be served. Like we're so used to serving others that we don't know how to even receive. But what the coolest part and the power of the mastermind per Napoleon Hill's thing is like, there's like this invisible force, and without getting too woo-woo, because I never believed in any of this stuff, like it's this invisible mind. It's why it's called the mastermind, is like, it just comes out in someone else. So like you're sitting there and all the time, like there'll be someone in it and they'll be serving and giving advice to someone in the love seat. And she goes, I don't know where that came from. Like that just came to me. And it's like the most powerful thing. And people are like, holy moly. So it's like, you're used as a vessel to like help this person get past something that they're really struggling with. So that's like a true definition of a mastermind. There's a lot of people who call things masterminds that aren't really masterminds. They're more of just like a workshop or whatever. So to me, I'm a mastermind facilitator, which just means I facilitate everyone else's, as Oprah would say, ahas. I'm also in one because when I've been doing masterminds for a while now, and I was at an event. I was having a mastermind I was doing here in Houston. That's where I'm from. And we were in this like beautiful bungalow with, there may be like 15 women that were in it. And I was at lunch and I saw them all sitting around. It was a real cute bungalow and they were outside eating lunch and they were some were sitting at the picnic table, some were sitting by the fire pit, and they were having these like most amazing connection moments. And like a mama bear, I was like standing back and I was like, this is amazing. Wow. Yeah, I've done my job. These women, look how they're connecting. And then I also had this pang of jealousy of, man, I want that for myself. Because as a facilitator, you're facilitating. It's not about you. It's about them. And so I was like, I need to join one too. So I joined one and recently got back from Puerto Rico. And it's just been amazing when you're in the right one with the like-minded women that are in mine. It's a business mastermind, but there's all kinds of types of masterminds. And when you're in the right one with the like-minded women, it's like they're lifelong friends, strategic partners, confidants, and it's really just an amazing thing. So so that was, I had been leading them for so long and not truly been in one. And so that's why I also stepped in and joined one at a much higher cost than what I charge.
It sounds like the ones you have been facilitating and attending
Mm-hmm.
are retreat style. Do they also have them where I thought a lot of them where they meet monthly? And so you had said like that, like this time they will be focusing on one person. So if you're there for a retreat style, is it like 1 hour each, and then you rotate? So for 8 hours, you're doing 8 people. Is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So great question. And so how I do mine, it's a year-long program. So we meet 3 times in person in a different city. So that's because I love to travel. So it's like, and most women, like if we can go to New York City for a weekend and actually do business and have fun and connect, like that's what we're going to do. So mine include three in-person retreats that I pick in really cool locations. We've done, we're doing Denver upcoming, Dallas, Austin. I've done Chicago, New York, just did one in Miami, doing one in California. So it's just kind of a cool way to, travel and also do business, right? So mine includes 3 for the year. And then we do every other week. So twice a month, we do virtual, like you're talking about. And it's a mix of, for me, the way I facilitate mine is I do round robins. So we meet for an hour every other week. And it's kind of a quick, everyone gets a love seat. But if we're not meeting for 2.5 days, then you may get 8 minutes versus an hour, right? So at the in-person retreats, part of the masterminds, you get, everyone gets their time in the love seat. But what's also cool is you can't just show up and just be served. You're also giving. So I also have everybody share a short presentation. I'll say I do have my type A people that will come PowerPoint, workbook, this and that, and they'll do what they can for 30 minutes or whatever. And then some who just get up and facilitate a conversation. So it's very flexible, but it's what you want to share with the group. So you're also giving as well as receiving. So in person, and a lot of the times I fly in like an expert guest because I'll theme each mastermind retreat. And, the last theme we had was really about, branding. And it was at a hotel called the Standard Hotel in Miami. And so the theme was Beyond the Standard, right? So branding beyond the standard. And I flew in a woman, and we really had some really cool aha moments and stuff like that. So it really is a combination of both. And there's a lot of one-off masterminds, which I think are good, and there's some that are just $10,000 to go to for just a day, and you get a minute in front of the room, right? So there's some of those, and then there's ones that I like the idea of being with the same group, because you really get to know each other and you have that sense of community. And that's why I do the year-long experience.
Well, it sounds like a great experience. I love how you connect the people and really make that community. And you mentioned travel. I saw one of your posts that you talked about what the beach taught you about business. And I thought it was such a playful, fun description. Can you just share a little bit more about, what the beach taught you about business?
Yeah. So the beach teaches me everything about business every time I go. And, I went to this last mastermind and I get really excited about learning, because there's always something to learn. And I'm a learning junkie, like so many women, right? I had to put a budget finally last year on my learning, because if I could make a full-time job out of learning, I totally would. So I had to cap it. And so I get excited about learning. But what was the coolest part was then going to the beach. So we were in Puerto Rico, so it was at a resort on the beach. And the worst thing, I've been to a mastermind before where you're at a gorgeous resort, you're on the beach, and you're sitting in a conference room and you're like going, oh, it looks so gorgeous. I wish I could go walk in the sand. And never once did I step foot in the beach.
And the windows are tinted.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes in that case, yeah. But I've been to ones where it's like just teasing you the whole time. Like, look at the people. They're just having. So to me, like, hey, let's just go lock ourselves in a conference room in a downtown. Don't tempt me with the beach. So I learned, if I'm going to do that, I need to give myself time before and after to actually reflect and come up with a plan that I'm going to put into action, because we don't need any more just information. We need to be able to apply that to our own life and business. And so this last mastermind for me was more of a, yeah, I got some good business strategies and all that kind of stuff, but it really was more life transformational, because I learned I'm going early and I'm going to stay an extra day or two and actually take that time to just decompress. And the coolest part was just like, yeah, being in the conference room, but then afterwards being like, beach, let's go. And just going and sitting around with the girls that are also in the mastermind, and just dishing about normal life, like, hey, how do you manage this? Or, really just getting to know each other. And to me that, and just sometimes just reading my Kindle and just kind of enjoying and listening to the sounds, and just so much clarity will come when you just get quiet and listen to what your next move needs to be, as opposed to trying to force it. So yeah.
And I know, Tara, that you are the creator of the Business Map Method.
Mm-hmm.
So let's dive in. What is
Yeah.
that?
Okay, so this is my baby. So the Business Map Method was something that I was doing very intuitively, from my experience as I was a corporate consultant before I leaped into this world of entrepreneurship. And it really is just like it's a holistic view of your business. So if you think of like I love airplanes. My whole website is about, travel and airplanes and whatnot. And so I like to think of it as like the first time I went up in an airplane and I didn't know what to expect. And my first flight was when I was 16. My uncle was his pilot, and he had his like a little itty bitty like 6-seater Cessna. That was my first flight, like not like a normal commercial flight. Hey, you want to go for a flight? Sure. So we went up and we flew around my hometown. And what was so amazing to me is I was really scared at the takeoff, and I was really kind of scared of the landing, but I didn't think of what does it actually look like when you're up in the plane. And so I remember being like, okay, I survived the takeoff. Whew. And then we were just kind of cruising around. I was like, there's my high school, there's my mom's barbershop, there's, the grocery store. And so I stayed real close to home, but like, when we were going around, it was really cool to see an aerial view of what it looked like from up top. I mean, you may have remember your first flight, but it's very like, perpendicular and a lot of squares, and it's like there's the cornfield, and it just the way it looks is so sectioned off. But then when you're like on the ground and you're driving the same roads, like it feels a little different, versus seeing it from a bird's eye view. And So when I looked at how can I create something that gives women that same feeling about their business, is like, oh, I see how all this comes together. I see all these roads coming together, and and how it all works together to, become how my entire business. And there's such clarity and calmness that comes with seeing all that together, how it all fits. So when I created the business map method, it was because I needed it, and I didn't even think about that it was going to become a product. But I was at a point where I was ready to just call it in. Like, I had a 6-figure coaching business, but I was coaching one-on-one, and I was exhausted. And I was thinking, I'm gonna go back to the corporate world, and at least they'll give me, I was going to negotiate 3 weeks paid vacation instead of 2. And I was like, there was something that I was just ready to be done. And so I went on a trip to Thailand with my husband, and we promised we weren't going to talk about work, business, and whatever. And of course, as soon as you get there, you're relaxed. So what do? Start talking about life and business and whatnot. And that's when I had that moment of, I want to do this. I know I'm called to serve women entrepreneurs, but it just has to look different. So when I get home, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna be my own best client. Like, the things that we do for other people, I was like, I got to do this and just figure it out. So when I came home, I made a mess of my office and just had notebook paper and Post-its, and I just needed to piece together everything, because my business had been Frankenstein. It had been, I maybe hired somebody to help me with some branding over here, but it didn't quite feel like me. And then I sold my one coaching one-on-one thing, which I was getting burnt out on, because I was starting to get maybe a little bored, and um, it just didn't feel right. And then I had just some pieces of it that just, they didn't fit together. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this, and I want it to fit together, and I want to see the forest through the trees. I want to see how all this is going to interact, so that I can build even a multi-million-dollar business model. And so I when I did that, I was like, whoa, and I showed it to my husband, who thought I was crazy. He's excited for me to go back and get the job, right? And so I was like, ta-da! And he's like, oh, okay, well, this kind of makes sense. It's not quite a business plan. It's just it's a map. It's a 50-page how-to guide of how I'm going to run all these areas of my business. And he goes, okay. And he's like, all right, well, let's go. Let's do it. And so I then was like, this is cool. So then I showed it to some friends, and I'm like, hey, do you like this? And they're like, that's cool. I'm like, do you want me to do one for you? And they're like, yeah. So I did a few for free for friends. It's a great way to test out if what you're doing is good, is you just, ask some friends if you can practice on them. Will you be my guinea pig? And they're like, yeah. So I would do it, and then they would get better, because I'd even refine it to make the map even better. And then I went to, I sold one, and then I went and sold. I bound it all up. I'll never forget. I went to a networking event, and I had it in, with the binder, and mine as an example. And she was a friend of mine, a high-end coach, and she's flipping through it, and she's like, Tara, this is excellent. I need all the people in my high-end program. Can you do this for all of them? And I was like, so my first real sell was a one-to-many for I think she had 8 people in her high-end program. And I was like, she's like, how much to do 8 of them? I'm like, oh, I don't know. So I just blurred out $1,000 each, and then I just kept refining until, and then I told myself, I'm going to do these for women, and the price, I just kept move up the price, until I did 100. And then once I did 100, I was going to figure out a way to systematize it so that women could do their own, and I could just review it with them. And so I did over 100, and now I'm at a point where it's systematized, and women can do them on their own, and they get the template and the lessons to cover 6 strategic areas of their business. I teach them how to build their business foundation, and then we get into getting really clear on their offers and their pricing. And then after that, we put together a sales system that works for them, because selling doesn't work the same for every woman, we know. And then after they have their sales in place and how they're going to do that, then it's a focus on how do they get visibility, so that people know that they're there to serve and what they're selling them. And then we do move into customer experience. and create their own customer experience strategy. And then we wrap up with their dream team strategy, doing that last, because a lot of women try to do it first. So, and then once you have that, it just is like there is not a stone unturned in your business, and it's a beautiful thing.
That's wonderful. I mean, it sounds like I love the analogy of the airplane because it is like a bird's eye view where you have so many different options and roads to choose.
Yes.
So what about the woman that is just petrified about sales? She's got a beautiful idea, product, service, and all that, but for some reason the word selling her services is a big barrier for her. How do you help her with your program?
Yeah, so great question. And everyone I work with has the same thing. I did too. What I found out I was good at in the corporate world, I was good at what they call upselling. I didn't know how to generate leads. So I never had that initial touch point. They brought me in later. And so, I kind of went into it a little cocky that I was good at sales, but I really wasn't. So I had to teach myself. And honestly, I paid like $25,000 to learn how to sell in a way that was not in alignment with who I was, and it didn't feel good at all. And so I kind of had to figure it out on my own. So the thing that I say to women is, if you just simply switch out the word sales to serve, it's a game changer. So instead of, oh, I got to go make sales today, well, I need to go serve some women today. Like, there's just a different energy that comes with just changing that simple word. And sales, when you're doing it right, it shouldn't feel salesy. It should feel like service. And when you take the pressure away from people, it is not like the used car salesman that, like, I still won't go buy my own cars. I'm like, it's my time, tell my husband, this is what I want. You go handle it. Just bring it up. Because I don't want to deal with it either. And I think we think of sales as sometimes it's, either the hustler mentality of, people just are working and it's just for the money and, or the satisfaction of like closed a sale and that kind of stuff. And then the other people are like, ooh, like, I'm really scared to ask for the sale. And I just take approach in the middle of, let's serve, we'll do a consultation. I'll help you because you want to, like, when you're serving somebody, before they ever pay you $1, like, you want them to be able to, like, to me, like, Pink Spoon, Baskin Robbins, take a little sample of what it would be like. And I want to see it too, right? Like, to make sure we're a fit. So sales really is a two-way agreement. It's not just a one-way. Like, oh, I hope they hire me. I hope they, say yes. It's like, well, do you like working with them too? And when you get some of that power back, it's like, it's just a different flow. And so to me, it's about service. You have the conversation, and I don't pressure anyone because I like to work with women when they're ready, not because I need to hit a quota or because, I'm doing it for like, there's so much manipulation that can go into it. And I just take that off the table and say, here's my proposal, take a few days and think about it. And guess what? Women will do one of three things. They'll say yes immediately. They'll actually take a few days and think about it, which is awesome. I know they're my rule followers. Or the third is they'll totally ignore you. And that's it. It's like, there's only three things they're going to do. So once we get over that, it's like, okay, like, the more people I can serve, the more people that you'll move closer to.
Well, I love what you're saying because it is just a word shift. But when you think about that word serve, so many entrepreneurs start because they actually have this beautiful vision of how they can add more value. And that's why they recognize a void, they see that they could serve that need. Mm-hmm. And so somehow you start doing your business plan, you start thinking now it's time to sell, and everything shuts down. So keeping that service idea is great. And especially because if you are working with women, so many women are great at serving. And it is a DNA, it's a part of our, it's part of who we are to serve others. So I think that's great advice.
Thank you. Yeah, the one thing that cracks me up is if you like do in-person networking, or sometimes it's even like if you do virtual Zooms or whatever, it's like when you meet someone and you're like totally jiving with them and you're like, they're so cool, and then this and that, and then you ask the question, so what do you do? And then they like turn into this like totally different person. They're like, I'm a blah, 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 da, da, da. Like they switch their personality. And I think that's how so many people are trained in sales. Like, what, lead? And then they change and you're like, ooh, I did like you. And we were jiving because our kids are both in lacrosse and now like, bye. So, it's like, it's about being able to assess and be aware of just making other people comfortable.
I
And
always say to my kids, social awareness is key in life. You just need to have social awareness.
seriously, like if we could just teach them one thing, like I'm just trying, I have 3 boys, I'm trying not to raise jerks and have some self-awareness in their life. I mean, I totally agree.
I want to ask one last question. And this is the biggest one that we could possibly ask, which is, what is the thing that keeps you most inspired?
Ooh. My gut, like initially I went to my kids and then I'm like, I'm sure everyone says my children, like it's a large part of everyone's why, right? Of why we hop out of bed. But what keeps me inspired is really I've put a lot of intention around creating my promise. Like, and it's a promise without sounding too woo. And I don't know the level of woo of your audience. Like I'm not woo woo, but I'm not like, I'm like woo. And I never believed in any of this stuff, but it was like really the law of making, like law of intention. So I don't even know if that's a real law. I just made that up, but maybe it is, or it probably is a real law. But this law of an intention of making a promise. And the promise I put out there is that I want to help elevate how the world views us women entrepreneurs, that we are a force to be reckoned with, not because we are like men, but because we add a different element into entrepreneurship. And what I've seen is the more women can make, the more like good they do for the world. So it's not about just making millions and keeping it and buying mansions and fancy cars and whatnot. It's more about the more you can make, the more good you can do for the world. And I've seen that as evidence, unlike how I kind of grew up with the mindset of totally different, like, rich people are, are they evil or, oh, they just, no, in this world, the more rich people I've met, the more I see how like philanthropy is such a huge part of what they do. And I see that. So my promise is that I have to do something to help change how the world views women entrepreneurs, that we're not just trying to run a business always with a baby on our hip. I mean, sometimes that's the case, but like, that we have ideas and we are awesome at taking action and making changes happen. And I know that's what I'm put on this earth to help do. And if I can have a little piece of that ripple effect, then that's all I want. And so that really is what keeps me inspired, is knowing that we're seeing a shift happen. I don't classify myself as a feminist. I don't play into that. I love men. I'm raising 3 boys. I'm married to an amazing man. But I feel as women, we do have something really cool. And to add to the world, and if I can help give women the confidence to do that because they have a plan and they have something that they can sell someday and retire on and whatever, then that's exactly why I hop out of bed every day.
That is absolutely beautiful. I have no doubt that you're going to be able to do that. I just can feel your purpose as you're sharing it. And to those on our call, assuming that this ripple effect is going to absolutely hit some of the women that are on our It's Better Together podcast. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best approach?
Sure. It would be just going to my website, is Terra Bohlmann with 2 N's.com. I asked my husband if I could kill one of the N's and respell our last name, and he said no. But it's terrabohlmann.com / consult. So CONSULT. And there's a form where you can answer some questions and if it's a fit for us to hop on a 30-minute call. Again, I don't sell on my consults. I will really serve you with what I feel will really help you in your next best step. And and that's the easiest way. So I love, unlike a lot of business coaches that I'm seeing these days, like I like to have one-on-one conversations with women. Like there's no gatekeeper. I mean, I have an executive assistant, but she's not going to decide if I'm going to talk to you or not. No, we can have a conversation. And if now's not the time to work with a coach, that's okay. If I can give you one thing that'll help you with your pivot, hey, that's just awesome juju out there, and it'll come back in different ways. So Yep.
Well, it is amazing how you can learn from every conversation. Like every person brings some sort of perspective, even if they're coming to you for advice. The question they ask that makes you pause and think of the right answer. You really, you find yourself growing even as a coach. So Terra, thank you so much for this conversation. And you are definitely an example of it's better together.
To watch a live Tuesday at 2 program with Revel Coach, visit us at revelcoach.com. Until next time.